Tonight, I want to share something that goes beyond hard work, beyond chasing goals, and beyond the endless pressure the world calls success. I want to talk about something much deeper, something timeless, powerful, and already present within you. It is the truth of your own nature, a truth that many spend a lifetime searching for, even though it has always been closer than their own breath. You have been traveling a path for a long time. Maybe you can clearly see the years behind you, maybe you cannot. But somewhere along the way, you have imagined a better life. You have visualized your desires, repeated affirmations, and held on to dreams that no one else could see. Yet there may have been moments when reality seemed unchanged. Moments when you looked at your circumstances and wondered whether any of it was truly working. Perhaps there were days when doubt quietly appeared, bringing with it the familiar voice that says, maybe this is impossible. Maybe none of this is real. Maybe life is fixed exactly as it is and nothing can truly change. That voice may sound convincing because it has been repeated so often, but it is not telling you the truth. The greatest misunderstanding a person can have is believing that life gives them what they want. Life does not respond to wishes alone. It responds to what you accept as true. The gap between your current experience and the life you desire is not created by time, circumstances, or other people. It exists only because of the assumptions you continue to occupy. This is the foundation of everything. Consciousness is the one reality, not as a theory, not as a philosophy, but as a living fact. Every condition you encounter, every opportunity, every challenge, every person who enters your experience reflects a state of consciousness that has been accepted within. The outer world is not acting independently of you. It faithfully expresses what has first taken root in your awareness. Think of the world as a mirror. A mirror cannot create its own image. It can only reflect what stands before it. In the same way, life reflects the states you consistently entertain. Once you understand this, you stop seeing yourself as someone at the mercy of circumstances. You begin to recognize yourself as the source from which those circumstances emerge. That realization changes everything. If you are the source, then change does not begin outside of you, it begins within. You do not transform your life by struggling against appearances or trying to force outcomes. You transform it by entering a new state of consciousness and accepting it as already true. The scriptures reveal this pattern clearly. Let there be light, and light appeared. Creation was not presented as a process of struggle or effort. It began with an assumption accepted as reality. The same creative power exists within you now. It has never left you. Your imagination is not a small mental faculty. It is the creative force at the center of your being. It continuously shapes your experience, whether you are aware of it or not. Every day, every hour, every moment, it is projecting your dominant assumptions into visible form. The question is not whether this power is operating. It never stops operating. The real question is, what are you giving your attention to? What do you repeatedly accept as true about yourself? What story are you telling about your future, your abilities, your relationships, and your possibilities? When you dwell in feelings of limitation, life reflects limitation. When you persist in believing you are missing something, experiences arise that seem to confirm that belief. But when you enter the feeling that your desire is already fulfilled, when you genuinely occupy that state inwardly, the world must eventually mirror it back to you. This is far more than positive thinking. Positive thinking often attempts to cover fear with pleasant words. The law of assumption goes deeper. It is about becoming inwardly identified with the reality you choose. It is about accepting a new state as fact before physical evidence appears. And this law is impartial. It does not judge, reward, or punish. It does not decide who deserves success and who does not. Like gravity, it simply operates. Whatever you consistently assume to be true, life faithfully reflects. Whatever state you occupy, reality confirms. Life has always reflected a simple truth. What is happening within eventually appears without. There are no exceptions to this principle. Yet many people reach the edge of real transformation and unknowingly make the one mistake that keeps their desire just out of reach. They learn the teaching, they imagine the outcome, they create the scene in their mind, feel the satisfaction of already having it, and then they begin to wait. While waiting, they keep checking the outer world to see if anything has changed. When they find no immediate evidence, they quietly return to their former way of thinking. They slip back into uncertainty. They start measuring progress. They begin looking for proof before fully accepting the reality they claimed within. As soon as that happens, the process is interrupted, not because the law stopped working, but because the new state was abandoned before it became natural. You cannot occupy two opposing states at the same time. You cannot live from the certainty that your desire is fulfilled while also focusing on the fact that it appears absent. The moment you begin searching the outside world for reassurance, you have stepped out of the state of fulfillment and into the state of waiting. And the law responds perfectly to the state you occupy. If you remain in waiting, you receive more waiting. If you remain in looking, you receive more reasons to keep looking. This is the deeper meaning behind the scripture, "No man can serve two masters." It is not speaking only of external things. It is describing two different conditions of consciousness. One state knows, the other doubts. One assumes possession, the other assumes lack. Both cannot be occupied simultaneously. The choice is made repeatedly throughout the day, often in the smallest moments. It is not a dramatic decision made once and forever. It is a quiet return, again and again, to the identity of the person who already possesses what they desire, who already embodies the reality they seek. Now let us talk about what Scripture refers to as the old man. Many misunderstand this idea. The old man is not an enemy to be fought. He is not something to hate, judge, or wrestle with. He is simply an outdated version of yourself that no longer serves you. Think of him as a worn-out garment. You do not argue with it, you simply stop wearing it. The old man is made up of all the assumptions you have carried for years. The belief that you are unworthy, the belief that success belongs to someone else, the belief that your past mistakes define your future, the belief that where you started determines where you must end. None of these are facts. They are only states of consciousness. And every state can be entered. Every state can also be left behind. The past only continues to affect you because you keep revisiting it in imagination. You replay old failures, relive old disappointments, and give them life by treating them as present realities. But the moment you stop identifying with those experiences, their power begins to disappear. Consciousness alone gives reality its meaning. When you withdraw your attention and identification from a state, it loses its influence over your life. This leads to one of the most freeing truths you will ever hear. The version of yourself you wish to become already exists. The life you dream about is not being built somewhere in the future. It is already complete. It already exists as a state available within consciousness. Everything you desire is already present, waiting only for your acceptance of it. Your role is not to manufacture that reality. Your role is to select it. Through imagination, feeling, and inner conviction, you move into the state where that reality is already true and begin living from it inwardly. When that state becomes natural, when it feels more real than your former limitations, something remarkable happens. The outer world begins to reorganize itself around your new assumption. Circumstances shift, opportunities appear, events align. Reality starts reflecting the state you have chosen. This is not coincidence. It is the law operating exactly as it always has. The outer world mirrors the inner world. It cannot act differently because it was never designed to. Before we continue, there is something important to understand about feeling, because this is where many people either activate the principle or reduce it to mere theory. Feeling is the secret, not emotion in the ordinary sense, not temporary excitement, not bursts of enthusiasm, not emotional highs and lows. The feeling that transforms reality is much deeper than that. It is the quiet inner knowing of already being the person you desire to be. It is the natural conviction that what you seek is already yours. I am not talking about forced excitement or artificial positivity. I am not referring to the kind of happiness someone performs while secretly trying to convince themselves. I mean something much deeper, a calm, stable certainty that settles within you, a feeling that lives beneath emotion, a quiet knowing that what you desire is already yours. You have experienced this feeling before. Think about a time when you received news you had been waiting for. Maybe it was a long-anticipated phone call, a message that brought relief, or an unexpected opportunity arriving at exactly the right moment. Before you reacted outwardly, there was a subtle inner shift, a sense of ease, a release of tension, a feeling that everything had finally fallen into place. Most people believe that feeling came because the event happened, but the truth is much more profound. That feeling is not merely the result of creation, it is the very substance from which creation emerges. When you can enter that state before the physical world gives you a reason to, when you can feel inwardly that your desire is already fulfilled and maintain that feeling as your normal state of being, your work is complete. Nothing more is required. From that point forward, the outer world is simply moving into harmony with the inner reality you have accepted. The scripture says, "Whatever you desire when you pray, believe that you have received it, and it shall be yours." Notice the instruction carefully. It does not say believe you will receive it someday. It does not say believe it might arrive if you try hard enough. It says believe that you have already received it. Everything changes the moment consciousness moves from wanting to possessing. The moment you stop identifying as the one who is searching and begin identifying as the one who has already found, the prayer is fulfilled within. And once it is fulfilled within, the outer expression becomes only a matter of time. Now, I want to speak directly to those who feel they are standing near a breakthrough. I believe many of you are closer than you realize. The very fact that these ideas resonate with you is significant. People who are completely disconnected from a truth rarely feel drawn toward it with intensity. The desire to understand, to grow, and to embody a higher state is itself evidence that something within you recognizes its possibility. Desire is not proof of absence. In many ways, it is evidence of nearness. You do not long deeply for something that has no relationship to your nature. The desire itself points toward a state that already exists and is available to you. It reveals a reality that is waiting to be occupied. But there is something important to understand when you approach a major shift in consciousness. Often, just before a state loses its hold on you, it seems to become louder. Old fears may become more active. Doubts may try to reassert themselves. Circumstances may appear to intensify in the very direction you no longer want. This can be unsettling if you do not understand what is happening. Do not mistake it for failure. In many cases, it is simply the final expression of a state that is losing its power over you. An old assumption that has shaped your life for years does not always disappear quietly. Sometimes it makes one last appearance before fading away. Conditions may temporarily seem worse. Financial pressures may appear stronger. Relationships may feel more challenging. Physical discomforts may seem more noticeable. Do not let appearances convince you that nothing is changing. What you are witnessing is often the remaining momentum of a state you are no longer choosing. It is the outer reflection completing its cycle while consciousness prepares to occupy something new. Stay faithful to your assumption. Remain loyal to the state you have selected. You are closer than you think. Even now, events are arranging themselves beyond your awareness. Conversations are unfolding. Opportunities are forming. Circumstances are moving into place. The sequence of incidents that will bridge your inner assumption and your outer experience is already in motion. You do not need to see it happening. You do not need to understand every step. In fact, the insistence on knowing exactly how things will unfold often reveals a hidden doubt. It suggests that the outcome depends upon your ability to control the process. Release that burden. Your responsibility is not to manage the bridge of events. Your responsibility is to remain faithful to the state you have chosen. The assumption is your work. The method is not your concern. The unfolding belongs to a wisdom far greater than the reasoning mind. Consider what happens every night when you fall asleep. You surrender completely. You do not supervise the movement of the world. You do not direct every event. You simply release control and trust the process. You do not consciously direct your heartbeat every second of the day. You do not oversee the countless processes happening inside your body. While you sleep, life continues effortlessly. Your cells regenerate, your body restores itself, and everything functions without your supervision. You surrender control, and yet everything continues perfectly. The law of assumption invites a similar kind of trust. It asks you to release the need to constantly monitor results. It asks you to stop managing every detail and instead settle naturally into the state you have chosen. Just as you drift into sleep without forcing it, you are invited to rest in the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled, trusting that reality will respond as it always has, by reflecting the dominant state held within consciousness. There is another point where many people struggle, and it deserves attention. They successfully enter the desired state in imagination. For a moment, they feel the reality of their wish fulfilled. They experience the perspective of the person they want to become. Then they open their eyes and see the remnants of the old reality still surrounding them. At that moment, something unexpected can arise. They feel attached to the former version of themselves. Sometimes it appears as sadness, sometimes as guilt, sometimes as the strange feeling that moving beyond the old identity somehow means betraying it. But the old version of you is not a living thing that requires your loyalty. It is simply a state, and a state cannot be wounded by your departure. You are not obligated to remain connected to limitation. You are not required to continue suffering simply because suffering has been familiar. There is no virtue in repeating assumptions that keep you small, restricted, or disconnected from your potential. The greatest contribution you can make to your family, your friends, and everyone whose life touches yours is to become the fullest expression of yourself. To do that, you must let the old state go completely. Stop returning to it in thought. Stop repeating its story. Stop treating it as though it still defines who you are. The story of your life is not determined by what happened years ago. Your true story is being written right now through the assumptions you hold about yourself in this very moment, and that story can change immediately. Transformation does not require endless struggle. It does not require years of repairing every old belief one by one. A shift in consciousness can happen in a single moment. One decision, one assumption, one choice to identify with a different state. In that instant, everything begins to reorganize around a new center. Scripture speaks of former things passing away, no longer remembered or given power. This points to a profound truth. The past is not a prison. It is not something permanently attached to you. It is simply the result of previous assumptions. Change the assumption, and you begin stepping into an entirely different reality. Behold, I make all things new. Notice the word new, not slightly improved, not gradually repaired. New. That is what occurs when consciousness genuinely shifts. You carry forward only what you continue to identify with. The moment you stop carrying an old state, its influence begins to dissolve. A new state brings with it a new perspective, new expectations, new behaviors, and new experiences. And because the outer world faithfully reflects consciousness, it begins supplying evidence that matches the new identity you have accepted. This brings us to perhaps the most important subject of all, identity. More powerful than any visualization, more powerful than any affirmation, more powerful than any technique. Identity is the foundation. Your life is not determined by the words you occasionally repeat. It is determined by who you believe yourself to be at the deepest level of your being. Beneath conscious thought exists a core self-concept. It is the silent assumption you carry about yourself when no one is watching. It is the answer to the question, who am I, that exists beyond spoken language. If that deeper identity believes certain blessings are unavailable to you, the most beautiful affirmations in the world will struggle to take root. If you secretly see yourself as someone who always gets close but never succeeds, life will continue producing experiences that support that identity. Reality is astonishingly faithful in this way. Techniques alone cannot replace a conflicting self-concept. Trying to do so is like decorating a building whose foundation remains unstable. The appearance may improve temporarily, but the structure itself has not changed. Real change happens when being changes. When you repeatedly choose to identify as the person you desire to become until that identity feels natural, not someone who hopes, not someone who is waiting, not someone who expects fulfillment someday, but someone who already is, someone who embodies that reality now, even if the outer world has not fully reflected it yet. This means thinking from that identity rather than thinking about it, speaking from it, making choices from it, moving through daily life with the quiet confidence of a person who knows the matter is already settled internally. The person who knows they are loved carries themselves differently than the person desperately seeking approval. The person who knows they are prosperous thinks differently, decides differently, and responds differently than the person who constantly fears lack. And those differences, though often subtle, eventually shape the entire experience of life, because every action naturally flows from the identity that is being occupied. Whatever you consistently assume about yourself eventually expresses itself outwardly. It cannot remain hidden. Your inner convictions reveal themselves through countless subtle ways, in your decisions, your reactions, your expectations, and even in the opportunities that seem to find you. Life is constantly responding to the identity you hold within. So if we call this a task at all, it is simply the gentle process of bringing your deepest assumptions into harmony with the reality you desire. And once you have done that, the key is not to cling to it with tension or desperation. It is to hold it softly and confidently, like holding something precious that you know already belongs to you, not forcing, not doubting, simply knowing. Over the years, I have observed something remarkable about this principle. I have seen people facing circumstances that appeared completely opposite to what they wanted, situations that looked impossible from every logical angle. I have seen individuals trapped in financial hardship that seemed built into the structure of their lives. I have seen health conditions that appeared permanent. I have seen relationships so fractured that reconciliation seemed beyond imagination. Yet again and again, one pattern revealed itself. When the person's inner state truly changed, the outer reality eventually followed. The turning point was never the circumstance itself. It was consciousness. The moment someone stopped identifying with the problem and began identifying with the fulfilled reality, something started moving. Events shifted. New pathways emerged. Unexpected opportunities appeared. Solutions arrived through channels that could never have been predicted. Sometimes the change came through doors they expected. Sometimes it came through entirely different routes, but it came. Not because life operates through random miracles, but because consciousness always comes first. Experience follows awareness. The world reflects the assumptions that have become natural within the individual. Everything you have ever experienced began as an inner acceptance of something as true. Whether you recognized it or not, your assumptions have always been shaping your reality. There are no exceptions. There are only moments when we become aware of the law, and moments when we remain unconscious of it. Earlier I said that you are close. Let me explain why I believe that. The fact that these words resonate with you is not an accident. Something within you recognizes them, not necessarily as information you are learning for the first time, but as something familiar, something remembered. There is often a feeling that accompanies truth, a quiet sense of recognition, as though a forgotten part of yourself is waking up. That feeling matters. It suggests that your consciousness is already approaching the threshold of a new state. The doorway is not somewhere far ahead in the future. You are standing before it now. The only remaining step is to enter. And entering does not require effort, struggle, or dramatic action. It simply means becoming so comfortable in the feeling of your wish fulfilled that it begins to feel natural. It means resting in that state so completely that you stop wondering whether it is working. You stop checking. You stop measuring. You stop looking for proof. Not because you are forcing yourself not to, but because your attention has become absorbed by the new reality you have accepted within. The old state gradually loses its appeal. It no longer commands your attention. Imagine someone who has just received life-changing news. Perhaps they have received the opportunity they dreamed of, the abundance they hoped for, or the love they longed to experience. Once they know it is theirs, they do not spend every moment seeking confirmation. They do not repeatedly question whether it remains true. They simply know. And that knowing changes how they move through life. Their choices change. Their conversations change. Their expectations change. Not because they are pretending, but because their inner reality has already shifted. That is the state you are invited to occupy. That is the state that creates. The assumption you repeatedly return to eventually becomes fact. This is not symbolic language. It is the way creation operates. Any assumption held consistently enough begins to take form in the physical world. The process is as natural as water becoming ice when the conditions are right. You do not force water to freeze. You simply maintain the conditions. Likewise, you do not force reality to change. You maintain the state. You remain faithful to the assumption. And then, life, through its infinite intelligence, arranges itself accordingly. The outer world organizes itself around the reality you have accepted within. Before we continue, I would like to share something practical with you. Not a technique in the ordinary sense, but a simple return. A return to the truth that has always been present beneath every fear, every limitation, and every appearance. Tonight, before you drift off to sleep, give yourself a simple gift. Close your eyes and enter a scene that could only exist if your desire had already become reality. Do not focus on the desire itself. Focus on the natural moment that would follow its fulfillment. Maybe it is a congratulatory conversation. Maybe it is waking up in the home you dreamed of. Maybe it is looking at your reflection and feeling completely healthy, confident, and whole. Maybe it is an ordinary moment in a life that has already changed. Whatever the scene may be, step into it completely. Do not watch it as though you are observing a movie. Experience it from within. See through your own eyes. Hear the sounds. Feel the atmosphere. Let yourself become the version of you for whom this reality is already normal. Then carry that feeling with you as you fall asleep. There is something powerful about the transition between wakefulness and sleep. In that quiet borderland, the deeper mind becomes especially receptive. What is impressed upon it with feeling is accepted with remarkable ease. Plant the seed there, not with anxiety, not with effort, with confidence. Think of a farmer who understands the laws of nature. After placing seeds into fertile soil, he does not dig them up every morning to check whether they are growing. He trusts the process because he understands it. That is the kind of faith being asked of you. Not emotional intensity, not constant striving, simply the calm certainty of someone who knows that what has been planted must eventually appear. Then wake the next morning as the person you chose to be the night before. No announcement is necessary. No performance is required. Simply live from that identity. Prepare your breakfast as that person. Walk through your day as that person. Speak, think, and respond from that state. You do not need anyone's approval. You do not need to explain what you are doing. Your task is simply to remain faithful to the inner reality you have accepted. The outer world will respond. It always does. Not because this law favors certain people over others, not because it is reserved for those who are more experienced or more spiritual. It works because it is a law. Just as gravity does not choose whom it affects, the law of assumption responds equally to everyone. It reflects the state that is consistently occupied. Working with the law means aligning your inner identity with the reality you desire and maintaining that alignment until it feels natural. The words "I am" contain the entire mystery. Not "I will be," not "I hope to become," not "one day I might," simply "I am." The present moment is where creation occurs. Whatever follows those words becomes an instruction given to consciousness itself. When you say, "I am unsuccessful," "I am limited," or "I am always struggling," you are not merely describing your experience. You are identifying with a state and giving it life. The same principle works in your favor. I am fulfilled. I am loved. I am abundant. I am already the person I desire to be. These are not wishes. They are choices of identity. Speak them from conviction rather than effort. Speak them from the understanding that the power creating reality is the very awareness within you, because that awareness is what you truly are. You have never been separate from it. Every step of your journey has been leading you back to this understanding. The years of searching, learning, imagining, and persisting have not been wasted. Every moment spent dwelling in the feeling of your wish fulfilled has mattered. Nothing is lost. Every sincere assumption has been contributing to the movement already taking place beneath the surface. Imagine water gathering behind a dam. At first, the changes seem invisible, yet pressure continues building. Eventually, a point is reached where everything releases at once. Many people give up just before that point. Do not. If the evidence has not fully appeared, do not return to the old identity now. This is often the moment when remaining faithful matters most. Not through force, not through struggle, simply by continuing to occupy the state you have chosen. Continue being the person who already knows. Continue living from the assumption that it is accomplished. The life you have imagined is not less real because it has not yet appeared physically. It exists now. It is present within consciousness, and consciousness is the source from which all experience emerges. Imagination is not fantasy. Imagination is the creative reality behind all visible things. The physical world is the reflection. The imaginal world is the cause. Everything visible began as something invisible first. You have been working in the realm of causes. The effects are following. Before we finish, I want to speak to those who have carried a desire for a very long time, perhaps so long that the longing itself has become painful. Perhaps the dream that once inspired you now occasionally reminds you of what appears absent. If that is where you find yourself, hear this carefully. The length of time does not prove impossibility. It does not mean you have failed. It simply suggests that part of consciousness is still divided between fulfillment and lack. The answer is not greater effort. The answer is deeper identification. Stop reaching toward the desire. Become the person who already possesses it. Stop chasing. Start occupying. Stop wanting. Start being. Move beyond the desire and into the feeling of fulfillment itself. The work is far simpler than most people imagine. Everything already exists. Nothing new must be created. You are selecting a state that is already available and choosing to live from it. When that choice becomes complete, when you stop leaving room for doubt and stop keeping an escape route back to the old identity, reality begins moving to meet you. It always has. It always will. You are closer than you think. In truth, you have never been far away. The door has always been there. The only difference is that sometimes you have been facing the wrong direction, studying the room around you instead of noticing the opening beside you. Turn toward it. Step through. The door is open. It has always been open. The awareness within you, the I am, is the key. Assume the state. Feel it as real. Remain there. Let appearances say whatever they wish. Let time say whatever it wishes. Do not return to the old identity that no longer belongs to you. You have moved beyond it. You are not who you were. A new reality is already taking shape around the person you have chosen to be. Some of those changes are visible. Others are unfolding beyond your awareness. But all of them are moving in the same direction, toward the fulfillment of the state you have accepted as true. So continue, not through effort, not through struggle. Continue through being. Continue through knowing. Continue through the quiet confidence of someone who understands that the work is already done, because it is. This is Neville Wisdom Library, and I'll see you in the next video.